Welcome back to Everyday Therapy. This is the official podcast of Nystrom and Associates. We have over 50 clinics in 5 different states with dedicated helpers. So if you or someone you know is struggling with your mental health, reach out to us at nystromcounseling.com and we can get you connected with someone. Brett, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. It's Friday, so how can you not be doing well on Friday?
I agree. Yeah. I feel like Friday's the best day. I wish it could be Friday every day.
Yes, but then it would take on a whole different meaning, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
So I'm doing okay. I'm excited for what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
Because it's a very relevant topic. And it's one I don't think we like to talk about. And because it's an emotion we don't even like to feel.
Okay. Let's see. What could it be?
Yeah. It's happiness?
No.
Certainly not humor, because we just advocated for that on previous podcasts.
We did, yes. Yeah. Okay. Is it bigger than a bread box?
It can be monumental, actually. Yeah, we're talking about anger today.
Okay.
And
I don't want to talk about anger.
Yeah, I know. Wow. I get scared when you did
See?
that. Right?
I know.
That's what anger does a lot.
It scares people?
It scares people, and it keeps people off balance sometimes, you know? So, like, anger has lots of different uses now that I'm thinking about it, too, some more. Is like we can weaponize anger. We can choose to use anger to get what we want from certain things.
Yep.
And a lot of times we don't even know what we're angry about. We don't even understand our responses when we're angry.
Yep. What is anger, do you think?
Well, let me give you an example.
Yeah, I love examples.
Anger is, I think, when I'm driving and the person I got this long on-ramp onto the highway and it's 70 miles an hour once you get on the highway, and they're doing 35 by the end of this long on-ramp.
Okay.
So what's going on inside of me? That's anger, right? I get really angry.
Sure.
And I can get, then, somebody cuts me off, I get more angry. I come home and then, my wife just doesn't validate me the way I want. Now I'm even more angry. And so I think, those are some examples of sort of how it comes out in my life sometimes. What about you?
Oh, man. Well, I definitely tend to get angry in the ways you're describing, especially like if I get inconvenienced, especially if I'm in a rush and something happens that like thwarts me. I'm like, right? I just like I'll if I spill my coffee, or recently I kept spilling my protein powder shake on myself on my way to work on like, of course, a light colored shirt.
Oh yeah.
And this chocolate protein powder, and I look down and I'm like just getting to work.
Oh my, yes.
So yeah, I guess when I'm thinking about, and that's a very mild example. I mean, obviously more substantial things can create anger too.
I really like I really resonated when you said, especially when I'm in a hurry. I have a thing for customer service. I put a high premium on good customer service. And if I'm in a hurry and I don't get good customer service, I get really angry. And I think anger a lot of times, when I have expectations, and then when my expectations aren't met, I can get angry.
Yes,
and
totally.
So it can be when I'm driving, it can be with somebody at work, it can be a family member, it can be the checkout clerk who's talking too long to this person, and I'm in a hurry to get going. So, so I think everybody can kind of relate. I don't know about you, I also find that when I'm really angry, I feel very justified in my anger to act the way I want to react in that moment. And so it's amazing how I can justify any kind of reaction in that moment. And usually I'd say, about 99% of the time, when I react in my anger that way, I regret it later.
Yeah, me too. I was nodding while you were saying that because I was like, that is so true for me too. Because going back to what you started with, which was, I think anger we're afraid of it. We don't like to talk about it. We don't like to feel it. So by the time I'm visibly angry, I'm very angry. Because I'm so used to like, okay, I'm not gonna get mad about this, or maybe I'm having a little anger, but I'm just not gonna show it. Right? Like those little things that can kind of build over time. So like you were saying, by the time I'm really angry, I feel totally justified in showing it. And basically saying or doing certain things that I'm like, oh boy, like afterwards when I've calmed down, I'm like, that wasn't my best moment, right?
Yeah, and I don't know about you, then I get angry again, but now I'm angry at myself.
Exactly.
And it just intensifies.
The backlash.
Yes.
Like why couldn't I control my anger? Why did I have to say that thing? Why did I let that get under my skin?
Right. Yeah, and all the shoulds kind of inhere within that. I shouldn't have done that. I should have done this instead.
Yep,
and
exactly.
I think I also tend to believe that because I'm not getting angry, I'm a pretty good person. And so, like, I'm being good because I'm not angry.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then if I do get angry, now I'm wrong. I've done something bad. I think that, for me, that really contributes to that whole kind of suppression. Push it down, and then, boom.
Right.
I can't push down anymore. So, I think people can relate. Maybe we can define anger, but okay.
No, yeah. So I was going to say, why don't I start with how I explain anger to clients?
Yeah.
And this is how it was explained to me.
Yes.
So anger is simply this. It's information.
Wow, that's kind of deflating. I mean, I was really waiting for something else.
I know. And my clients often have the same response because they're like, well, what is that? Like, what? Because what anger is basically telling me, it's a signal from my body that someone or something is crossing my boundaries, and or I'm feeling powerless about something, and or there's some need not being met.
Right. So it's a communication
from the body.
Right.
And I think the reason why I give that very lackadaisical, or not lackadaisical, but very like anticlimactic answer.
Kind of bland. Yeah.
Bland, because anger in and of itself doesn't have to be acted on. It doesn't have to be feared. It doesn't have to be, it's almost like when you get a stomach ache and it's just your body's way of saying like, hey, something's up. Something's not sitting right. But we don't go, oh, I have a stomach ache. I hate it. Right? Why did I have to get another stomach ache? I hate, and we don't resist it and we don't fight it. I mean, it's not enjoyable, but
so
we take it.
What you're saying is we judge it. Is that kind of it? Yeah.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Like, I get happy and I don't think, man, I can't, that was stupid.
Why am I happy again?
Yeah. We
love it.
Judge it. Yeah, we do judge it, actually.
When it goes away?
Well, yeah. Like,
Go ahead.
This blows.
Yeah.
But we judge that happiness is good.
Right.
And so we have a positive judgment towards that.
Exactly.
And we have these negative judgments towards what it is.
Right.
But let's talk more first about, because I think that plays into why we're afraid of anger. But let's make sure we're clear on what anger is. And you're saying it's information.
It's information from the body / mind. So from me, the being Krista, that is saying something's up. Pay attention to this. So when I get that little, it doesn't mean there's something necessarily wrong with the outside world. It could be something off within me, like a perception, a judgment of myself.
Yes.
Right? Or I need to stand up for myself. Anger gives us energy for action.
Right. So
Yep.
it sounds so counterintuitive because anger, a lot of times we instinctively in that moment believe it's something I need to act on. And what you're saying is it's something first I need to acknowledge, but I don't have to act on it.
Exactly. Step 1, acknowledge it.
Okay.
So before you act, actually it's probably better to acknowledge it first. Because you have to understand what the heck it is first.
A lot of times I don't realize it until after I've acted on it, and then I'm like, oh, man, yeah, I guess I was really mad.
Exactly, and I do the same exact thing because usually, like you said, it's like it stays just under my awareness. Then when I get mad enough, it almost feels good to be able to express it because it's like, I'm really justified, right? And then later I'm like, oh, crap, right? Like, why? I could have waited. So
Well, and I think it feels good because of that justification that we tend to think we have. And I think, like you said, there's this energy, like any emotion. Anger is just a different form of this energy within us. And so when we get really angry and we react, it feels good because there's this huge outburst and expenditure of energy.
Right.
And now I feel a sense of relief immediately.
Right.
And tends to be followed by regrets and things, or could be actually be followed by more justification. Because I don't want to admit that I screwed up, that I overreacted.
Right.
And so now I want to justify it even more. And so I get more angry. And
Yep, exactly.
so it's information, basically,
Yep.
that we need to acknowledge.
Right. So once you've acknowledged it, then it's like, okay, well, now what do I do? Because I now have not only this information, there's something's going on, but now I have this energy, right? Because anger, I think, creates this energy in us for action.
Absolutely.
But it's like, okay, doesn't mean we can't act, but let's ask ourselves some questions first. So maybe it's acknowledge, then ask, if we're just going with the A's
I like
theme.
it. Let's see how we end up here.
So
Yes.
like I was referring to before, is there a need not being met? Am I needing something that I feel that's not being met? Right?
Which is hard. A lot of times I don't have any clue what I really need or want.
Yes,
So
right.
like that sounds super simple, but
Yeah.
I don't want to just gloss over it
Right.
because
Yep.
for me, it might take me a while. It could take me days even to understand what is it I really think I need or want. I don't have any idea right now.
Well, no. So the first one that comes to mind for me is hunger. Like people talk about being hangry. So I know it might sound simplistic, but a lot of people do kind of have this like haha joke with their loved ones about, well, I was hungry.
Right.
Like what was going on with me? What did I need? Well, I was hungry.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one. Tired.
Yes.
Tired's like these are the really common two that you can just ask yourself. Like usually for me, it's one of those two in the immediate. Now there might be more long-standing things that are like more just like chronic
Well, I think of
frustrations.
people who have,
Yep.
I think of chronic pain can cause people to be really irritable and just
Yes.
get angry.
Yes.
Because that's a real vulnerability if we are in kind of chronic pain.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, if we're hungry, if we're tired, if we're in chronic pain,
Yep.
yeah, if we're stressed.
Yeah. Yep.
All big vulnerabilities for us that we don't even realize a lot of times.
Exactly. So that's the first question to ask: is there something I'm needing? Now, hungry and tired are pretty straightforward, but they could be more subtle than that. It could be something like I need my partner to do more listening, less talking when I'm expressing something, right? It could be I need my boss to give me acknowledgement. I need, right? Like, again, but it takes the process of reflecting on like, okay, what is it? What am I missing? But what's cool about it, it's a way to check in with yourself before you kind of lash out, so to speak, which, like, believe me, I've done it many times. And then later was like, oh, I wish I would have kind of like checked in with myself first to be like, what's going on, Krista? Right? So that's the first thing. Is there something I'm needing? Do you want to move? Should we move on to the
Well,
next?
I was trying to listen and
Thank you.
really took those
Now,
words to
I said
heart.
my partner,
Yes.
not my podcast host, but you read between the lines. I'm just
Like,
kidding.
okay, I get it.
No, I'm just kidding.
But it is hard to do that, and I think you bring up a really good point. Some of this is not it's kind of subtle. You know, I need someone to listen more. Yeah, that doesn't.
It's not always
that doesn't-
easy to pick out.
Right, super hard to identify. I need I need someone to validate. I just need someone to validate, how I'm feeling.
Yep.
Doesn't strike me as really what I need.
Yep.
So it's hard. Yeah, I'm glad you took time to really help people understand.
Right.
This is not simple.
No.
And it does take some time, which is good.
Right. Yes.
We need some pause
Yes.
between the realization and the action with anger.
Yes. Sometimes it's like, I need help. I know for me, I don't know if you're this way, kind of a recovering people pleaser, recovering overachiever, so to speak. Sometimes I take everything on that I need to do it myself, and then I get angry because I'm like, I have too much on my plate. And it's like, well, what about asking for help? right?
Never thought of that either.
Right. So again, it might just be, a big one is, do I have a need that's not being met? And if so, what is that thing? And can I ask for what I need, right? The next question to ask yourself is someone crossing my boundaries? So a big one, I can give an example with this one, is when someone starts giving me a whole bunch of unsolicited advice.
Yes.
I'll just admit that is a pet peeve of mine. Yes. And I know, people always mean well.
Yes.
But I think, especially if it's someone that doesn't really understand the crux of what is going on or what I'm talking about.
The key is unsolicited.
Unsolicited.
Advice.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Advice that I've asked for, that's a different story altogether.
Yeah, yes.
But when people kind of are like, well, here's what you should do with, and I think people do that because they're trying to alleviate their own, it's not about me ultimately, right? Yeah. But it is someone kind of stepping into my boundary and being like, hey, I've got the answer for you. Right?
Well, yeah, it tends to, it's unsolicited and it tends to cheapen maybe kind of how we're feeling and it doesn't feel very validating. And so, it feels like a boundary infraction.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yep.
So everything I've heard you say, now notice, just an observation, I think this is really profound, that when we're angry, our focus goes almost exclusively external.
Yes.
Immediately.
Such a good point.
Everything you're saying is to first go internal.
Yes.
And look at, all right, what's going on? Is there a boundary that's been crossed of mine? What's going on within me? Is there a need that's not being met? Wow, that's super profound and really hard because everything within me, I want to go external with my anger.
Exactly. I'm so glad you summarized it that way because I was just thinking, okay, so in our working definition of anger, it's information from inside that is deceiving because it feels like it's from outside.
Right, and that's so contrary to the cultural narrative we hear today is that you made me angry.
Or this situation made me angry, right? A person, place, or thing made me angry.
Yes.
When really the information is originating inside of me.
Yes.
So it's my issue to sort out. It doesn't mean there aren't factors at play that I need to address. But ultimately, the information is coming from inside of me.
Yeah, it's my anger.
It's my anger,
right?
exactly.
I'm responsible for what's mine.
And in that moment, though, that is the last thing that feels true, doesn't it? In the moment of anger, it's like this is, for me to think this is my anger is like the last thought in my mind. I'm like, so it's that, I'm pointing everywhere.
Yeah, I think next time I see you angry, which I've never actually seen you angry. But
you haven't?
No, I don't think so. But I'm thinking when I do see that, I'm just going to give you unsolicited advice.
Well, wait.
And say, hey, remember, Krista, this is internal.
This is an internal experience.
Right. Would that help?
Maybe. Maybe you ask
not.
first if I want your advice. If actually you had it backwards, if you want to see me angry, just give me unsolicited advice, right?
Yes. Okay.
Just kidding.
Do not do that.
And I'm better now. I'm using that, as an example because now I know most people in my life I've trained them to not do that.
But that's good.
Because again, I recognize, what do I need? I need for someone to not give me advice I haven't asked for. So I've told my loved ones. I really have. It's a running joke with my dad. He'll say something and he'll go, oh, whoops. Do you want my opinion?
And notice how empowering that is for you. You
Yes.
actually can train people by being assertive with your anger. You're taking this energy and you're channeling it towards something that's constructive for yourself rather than reacting and it's so destructive.
Exactly.
And I think that really hits on why we're afraid of anger so much. I tend to think we're afraid of anger because when do we first experience it? We experience it when we're kids. And we see it in our parents and we see it in other people in our lives. And our experience of it predominantly is that anger is destructive.
Right.
And so it's bad. And I think it's really hard to get beyond that. I notice a lot in therapy, and I'm just going to say this too, because I was a pastor and it's hilarious. Especially Christians, especially. But I think it's universal. If I'll say to somebody, you sound, to me, it sounds like you might be kind of angry about this. Oh, no.
I'm not angry.
I'm not angry. Oh, well, what are you? I'm just frustrated.
Thank you.
You know, it's like, this is it's socially acceptable to be
frustrated or irritated. We should come up with a list of all the words people use that mean anger, but that they think don't mean anger.
Yes.
Myself included.
Yeah.
I'm irritated. I'm frustrated.
Yes.
I'm what? What are some other ones?
I'm irritated. I'm frustrated. I'm stressed. Yes. I'm overwhelmed.
Alarmed, concerned.
Yes. And the list goes
on and on. But anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, but I think that comes from a sense of, I think we've seen how destructive it is. And I think, this is a bugaboo, so I'm just going
yeah, please.
On a soapbox.
Go off, King.
Yeah, thanks. I've seen it because I was a pastor. I see it in Christian communities too, because there's this passage in the Bible, don't let the sun go down on your anger, and the devil might get a foothold. And so I can't be angry.
Ooh, yeah. No,
I can't be angry.
Stakes are high.
And it's funny, there's this idea then that anger is bad. I'm reading a book now called Angry Jesus. It's really, really good.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful for people to begin to understand anger. It can be incredibly constructive, and to start viewing it as kind of neutral. It's information, like you said, but because we've been sometimes the recipient of that destructive nature, or we've just kind of vicariously watched it, and we're like, oh no, well, what's going to happen when we see parents and others exhibiting this? We really shy away from it. Then we see ourselves doing the same thing, and it's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Why do I do that? And all this regret. So there's this moral component that we associate that anger is immoral in some ways.
Right. No, that's a great point. I think that totally contributes to why we get afraid of it, why we might avoid it. It feels like it's morally wrong.
Yes.
Or, like you said, what we see our parents do or other adults do when we're growing up gives us a sense of, is anger scary? Is anger good? What is it? You know, I don't know about you, but I've been around families that just like, maybe it's an East Coast thing. You know, they talk about Minnesota nice. I mean, it's cultural, where it's just like, I have friends who, when they're with their family and loved ones, they just go off at each other. Like, they just pop off about something like, bah, da, da, da. And I'm like, whoa, you know, but they just recover immediately and are just like moving on. It's like nothing.
I love that, because what that does, I think, it can produce, if you can get comfortable with it, it produces a sense of safety.
Yes.
Like, you can get really ticked off at me.
You can get mad at me.
Fine. We're fine. We're okay.
Yep.
That's safety.
One of my favorite things in a relationship or a friendship is when you get to the point where you can get mad at each other. I think there's nothing quite like it, because it is this scary thing. I recently had a disagreement or a misunderstanding, I guess you could say, with a close friend of mine. And I had an anger response, and I expressed that to her. And I told her later, because we had we had the misunderstanding discussion where I was angry. Then we had another debriefing sort of thing afterwards. And I said, thank you for being a safe person. When I was angry, I said, I knew I could express that to you, and I was respectful, but I did say to her, I'm feeling angry. And I said that to you because I knew you could handle it. Because I knew you'd rather me tell you I'm angry than hide.
Yeah, that really struck me. When we can just verbalize, I'm really angry.
I feel angry.
I feel really
I'm angry. Yep.
And how we can't do that with our partners, how we can't do that with our kids, how our kids can't do that with parents.
Right.
How in work situations, we can't do that with colleagues.
Yep.
We can't do it with a supervisor and say, hey, I'm really angry about this.
Right.
It's off limits everywhere. And it's just not healthy. And it's a real unfortunate aspect of anger. Like, it's wrong. And like you're saying, when we can express it and name it, we have a much more authentic relationship with somebody. That's a more intimate kind of connection with somebody.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
It is. It's totally powerful. I'll add one more kind of question you can ask yourself after you've acknowledged that you're feeling angry, and then the questions to ask yourself. Am I feeling powerless about something? Anger is, like we said, it gives us energy. If you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, anger, like if you think about an animal, anger puffs us up and gets us ready for fight, right? So it's almost it can be sort of part of a fight response where it's like, I have energy to defend myself, to defend my territory. You know, you see animals snarl at each other, growl at each other, right? So when I experience that, it might mean I'm feeling threatened or powerless about something.
Right.
So am I feeling a perceived threat? Am I feeling, again, like I'm being walked on, so to speak, which is a boundary thing. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's the one that resonates with me. When I get really angry, I try to ask myself, what's the threat
Yeah,
that
exactly.
I'm experiencing here? And oftentimes I really discover, more often than not, it's a perceived threat. It's not actual.
Yes.
So
yes.
my perception is skewed, it's wrong, and I need to kind of check the facts before I react. So that's kind of my initial, response is that's what I do, and I just acknowledge how hard that is.
It is, yeah.
And I also think, I think it would be good to maybe do a second episode on this too, to talk about.
Sure.
So then how do I react in a constructive way? Because, and then also, how do I, when I've been destructive in my anger, how do I make relational repairs?
Yeah, that's a great
Just normalizing the need to do that. But
Yep.
I think in general, like, I look at fire, or I look at anger like fire. It can be awesome, and it can be awful. It can be incredibly destructive, and it can be constructive. Like, it can be channeled.
Just like
I
fire.
Look at,
Yeah.
I look at like how people have channeled their anger constructively throughout history too.
That's a great
people
point.
have had anger towards slavery and have channeled that anger to abolish it.
Exactly.
And we forget how constructive this can be.
Exactly. No, I'm so glad you said that, because anger can be your friend. It doesn't have to be your enemy, right? It can help you acknowledge what's going wrong, or what's not working for you, so you can make a change.
Right.
So I guess to kind of summarize, anger is information. It can show up in the body physically, tension. Your heart rate might increase. I don't know about you, but I get warm when I'm angry.
Yeah, I get warm.
Your face might flush, right? And it's like this sense of like, I just tensed my jaw even when I was like imitating anger, right?
Yeah.
It's information from inside of me that is deceiving, because it feels like it's coming from out there, about someone or something out there.
Yeah.
But it's actually an opportunity to go internal and reflect and ask myself, is someone crossing my boundaries? Do I have a need that's not being met? Or am I feeling powerless about something?
Yes.
So those are the three things you can ask yourself when you notice a feeling of anger. And we're gonna tackle this again, I think, and kind of give some ideas about what can I do then. So I've acknowledged it. I've asked myself these questions. Now what?
Yeah. How do I be constructive?
Yep.
Not
not
destructive.
destructive.
How do I reconnect when I've been destructive?
Exactly.
And really learn and make anger my ally or my friend. I really like that.
All right. Well, we can't wait to talk with you more about this next week. Take care, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.